The military hired me to organize a squadron, and I fell in love with Himtha. Shuttle hummed softly as it descended toward the military space station, its polished metal surface reflecting the cold light of distant stars. Inside, the protagonist sat upright, hands folded over a worn leather briefcase, heart quietly racing with a mixture of excitement and nerves. She had spent years preparing for this moment, proving herself in simulations, strategy sessions, and smaller field assignments. Now, the military had entrusted her with something far greater, organizing an elite squadron of pilots. The responsibility was immense, the challenge nearly unimaginable. But she was ready, or at least she told herself she was. As the shuttle docked, the doors slid open with a hiss, revealing a bustling station alive with movement. Soldiers, technicians, and pilots passed through the wide corridors, their uniforms crisp and their expressions determined. The scent of recycled air, metal, and ozone filled her senses, reminding her that this was no ordinary mission. This was where humans stretched their reach across the stars, where they defended not just territory but the hope of survival and the pride of being capable, adaptable, and courageous. She stepped off the shuttle and adjusted the strap of her briefcase. Her eyes scanned the area, taking in the scale of the station. Huge hangars stretched to either side, each housing sleek starfighters and transport ships. Large observation windows offered a breathtaking view of a nearby nebula, its swirling colors painting the metal walls in shades of blue, violet, and gold. Every detail reminded her why humans were so remarkable: the ability to dream, to build, and to strive beyond the limits of a single planet. A young officer approached, his uniform spotless, his stride confident. "Commander," he said, saluting crisply, "welcome to Station Orion. I've been assigned to assist you with your squadron." "Thank you," she replied, returning the salute. "I appreciate your help. I'll need a full briefing on the recruits and their current status. Of course, right this way." He led her through the corridors, past the sound of engines being tested and technicians reviewing data streams on floating holographic panels. The station felt alive, a hive of human ingenuity and purpose, all moving toward a shared goal. They arrived at a large training bay where recruits were gathered. Dozens of young pilots, each wearing a uniform that marked them as cadets, were engaged in various drills. Some were running simulations on holographic consoles, others practicing maneuvers in flight simulators, and a few were sparring lightly, testing reflexes and hand-eye coordination. Each of them moved with energy and determination, but it was clear that the squadron was far from ready. Disorganization lingered like a shadow over the room. "These are the recruits you'll be working with," the officer explained. "They're talented, but they lack coordination and experience as a team. That's where you come in." She studied the group, noting the wide range of personalities and skills. There was the energetic cadet who seemed to thrive on risk, the quiet technician whose calculations were precise, but whose reflexes lagged slightly, and the one who appeared confident to the point of arrogance. And then she saw him, the pilot, who seemed different from the rest. He stood near the back, arms crossed, watching everything with calm, assessing each motion with a sharp eye. He had the bearing of someone who had seen more than his peers and carried himself with a quiet authority. The officer followed her gaze. "Ah, yes. That's Lieutenant Kieran. He's one of our best pilots, very skilled in both strategy and combat. But he's reserved. He doesn't socialize much, and he tends to keep his distance." "Noted," she said, her curiosity piqued. There was something about him that drew her attention, a sense of discipline mixed with an understated intensity. She made a mental note to observe him closely. Leadership was not just about giving orders. It was about understanding people. And he might be the key to uniting this squadron. She turned her attention to the recruits. "All right," she said, stepping forward, her voice clear and commanding. "I know you've been training individually, but this squadron isn't about individual skill. It's about teamwork. Each of you has talent, but without coordination, without trust, that talent means very little. I'm here to organize you, to build you into a squadron capable of handling any mission, and I expect your full cooperation." A few nods appeared, but the energy in the room remained chaotic. She knew this would take time, patience, and more than a little ingenuity. Humans were adaptable, and she trusted that they would rise to the occasion. But first, they needed guidance. Over the next several hours, she observed each recruit carefully. She noted strengths and weaknesses, identifying natural leaders, thinkers, and risk-takers. She asked questions, watched simulations, and made adjustments to training exercises. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. Some cadets worked best under pressure, others needed reassurance, and some thrived when given autonomy. By the end of the day, she had drafted the first iteration of a training schedule tailored to each member's abilities. During a brief break, she found herself near the simulation pods, reviewing data on a tablet. Lieutenant Kieran approached quietly, standing a few feet away. She looked up, startled slightly by his presence. "You're thorough?" he said simply, nodding at the tablet. "I've seen some commanders overlook details." "You don't." "Thank you," she replied. Attention to detail is essential when lives are at stake. He studied her for a moment, eyes thoughtful. "I like that you treat this as more than just rules and drills. You want them to grow. To trust each other." "I have to," she said. "A squadron is nothing without trust. And trust is built on understanding people, not just orders." He nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Good. Then maybe we can make this work." Something shifted in the air, subtle but undeniable. It wasn't romance, yet she reminded herself firmly, but there was a spark of connection, sense that he could be both an ally and an inspiration to the squadron. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Training sessions stretched long into the station's artificial night. Simulations tested mental acuity, and tactical drills pushed physical limits. There were moments of frustration, cadets arguing over strategies, mistakes in formation flying, but also moments of triumph when the team managed to execute a complex maneuver flawlessly. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced the idea that humans could adapt, learn, and achieve beyond expectations. Lieutenant Kieran proved to be invaluable. His skill in piloting was unmatched, and his quiet guidance helped the recruits find confidence. He didn't offer praise lightly, but when he did, it carried weight. Slowly, the cadets began to respect not only him, but also the protagonist's leadership. They noticed how she combined strategy with empathy, discipline with encouragement. One evening, after a particularly grueling simulation, she and Kieran lingered in the empty hangar, the hum of dormant ships surrounding them. "You handled the formation drill well today," he said, voice low. "Some commanders would have lost patience, but you guided them without breaking them down." "I learned a long time ago that people respond better to respect than fear," she replied, leaning against a railing. "Even in the military, humans are capable of more than brute strength or orders. They thrive when they feel valued and understood." He studied her for a long moment, then gave a small nod. "I see why they respect you, and why you might just turn this squadron into something extraordinary." The words warmed her unexpectedly. It was rare to find someone who understood leadership not just as command but as inspiration. She found herself looking at him differently, noticing the subtle tension in his posture, the way he assessed the world with keen intelligence and quiet patience. Yet she reminded herself to stay focused. The mission came first, personal feelings later. By the end of the first week, small changes were visible. Cadets moved with more coordination, mistakes were fewer, and trust began to take root. The protagonist observed with pride, knowing that humanity's greatest strength lay not just in technology or skill, but in the ability to adapt, to work together, and to rise above fear and uncertainty. And yet, even amid the strategy and drills, she couldn't shake the awareness of him, the skilled, reserved pilot who seemed to see everything and yet shared so little. There was a subtle tension, a pull she didn't fully understand. But she knew one thing: this squadron, this mission, and perhaps even her own heart, would be shaped in ways she could not yet imagine. As the station lights dimmed for artificial night, she stood at a window, looking out at the swirling nebula. The stars reminded her of the vastness of space, of the challenges ahead, and of the remarkable potential of humanity. She smiled faintly, feeling the weight of responsibility and the thrill of possibility. Organizing a squadron would test every skill she had yet. She felt ready, because humans were capable of extraordinary things. Perhaps, just perhaps, she was about to discover something extraordinary herself. The next morning, the training bay was alive with activity. The recruits moved in formation, some still struggling to keep pace, others beginning to show the discipline she had been instilling. The air smelled faintly of machine oil and recycled air, the hum of engines and the soft beeps of consoles creating a steady rhythm that reminded everyone of the precision this job demanded. The protagonist walked among the cadets, observing, correcting, and encouraging. Every movement, every decision mattered, and she made sure each pilot understood that Lieutenant Kieran was already at his station, calibrating his simulator with meticulous care. He glanced at her as she approached, eyes calm, yet keen, as though measuring her progress even as she measured his squadron. "Good morning," he said, voice low but clear. "You've got a tough group today. Several of them still aren't synchronized." "I know," she replied, smiling faintly. "But they're learning. They want to improve, and that's half the battle." He nodded. "True, I'll help where I can." Some of them respond better to example than instruction. They spent the morning running drills. The protagonist designed scenarios to test coordination under pressure, simulated asteroid fields, rapid enemy approaches, and emergency maneuvers. Some cadets panicked, making small mistakes that could have been fatal in real combat, while others adapted quickly. She moved through the room with precision, pointing out errors, demonstrating corrections, and offering praise when a maneuver was executed well. During one drill, a small transport ship simulator was attacked unexpectedly. One cadet froze, unsure of how to react. Kieran quickly stepped in, issuing calm commands over the left vector. "Adjust for evasive maneuver. Trust your partner." The cadet followed, and the simulation ended successfully. The protagonist watched, impressed. Kieran didn't just have skill, he had patience, the kind that inspired confidence in others. By midday, she gathered the recruits for a review session. They sat on the floor of the training bay, tired but attentive. She displayed their performance data on a holographic panel. "You've all made progress," she began. "But progress isn't enough. This squadron needs precision. It needs trust. Every one of you has a role. Some of you are natural leaders, some thinkers, some risk-takers. Each of you must recognize the other's strengths and weaknesses. Only then can you function as a team." She paused, letting her words sink in. The room was quiet, the cadets focused on her every word. Kieran stood silently to the side, observing, offering subtle nods when she emphasized a key point. "Commander," a cadet finally spoke. "How do we deal with the ones who don't follow orders? Or the ones who make mistakes?" She smiled gently. "Mistakes are part of learning. You will make them, and so will I. What matters is how you respond. You correct them, you help each other, and you never give up. That is what makes a squadron strong." The afternoon was spent in paired exercises. She deliberately paired cadets with contrasting strengths and weaknesses. The energetic pilot was teamed with the quiet, analytical one. The overconfident cadet was paired with the careful, methodical one. Kieran was assigned to guide a small squadron through a simulated enemy engagement. She observed him work, noting how he adjusted his communication for each cadet's personality. During a break, she found herself standing near the observation deck, watching cadets through the reinforced glass as they executed complex flight patterns in their simulators. Kieran joined her quietly, standing just behind her, shoulders relaxed but alert. "You have a good eye for detail," he said softly. "You notice things most people miss." "Observing is part of leadership," she replied. "You can't guide someone if you don't understand them." He studied her for a moment. "And you do understand them. That's why they're starting to improve so quickly." She turned slightly to meet his gaze, a flicker of surprise passing through her. He was not only skilled, but insightful, capable of seeing beyond the surface, of reading people as easily as reading a display screen. "Thank you," she said simply, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. The next few days were a blur of activity. She introduced more complex exercises, testing the squadron's ability to work under pressure. They simulated ambushes, emergency repairs, and multi-ship coordination. Mistakes were made, frustrations rose, but slowly. The cadets began to act more like a team. Kieran's quiet presence continued to influence the group. He rarely gave direct praise, but when he did, it was meaningful. A subtle nod, a calm correction, or a brief comment could turn panic into focus. The protagonist began to notice the small things about him, how he observed without judgment, how he anticipated problems, and how he made people feel competent even in stressful situations. She admired him professionally, but a deeper feeling was beginning to grow. One she didn't fully understand yet. One evening, after a long day of drills, she stayed late to review the day's performance logs. The hangar was quiet now, the hum of engines replaced by the soft hiss of air circulation. Kieran approached, carrying a small data pad. "I reviewed the simulation logs," he said. "There are areas we need to focus on tomorrow. Some cadets are still hesitant during rapid maneuvers." She nodded, scrolling through the reports. "I noticed. I'll adjust the next set of exercises. They're learning, but it's a slow process. Trust takes time." He leaned against the railing beside her. "Yes, but humans are adaptable. They rise to challenges when guided correctly. That's what makes them strong." She glanced at him, intrigued by the ease with which he understood both people and strategy. "I agree," she said. "Humans have a remarkable capacity to improve when they have guidance and purpose. Sometimes I think that's what makes leadership rewarding, the chance to see potential become reality." He gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Then we're on the same page. That's good. It means this squadron has a chance to become more than just a group of individuals." The days that followed tested the squadron in new ways. They were sent on mock missions that stretched across multiple sectors, requiring them to navigate complex routes, avoid simulated enemy patrols, and respond to emergencies without instruction. Each exercise revealed weaknesses and strengths. Cadets began relying on one another, communicating more clearly, and trusting their instincts during a particularly difficult simulation. The squadron encountered a scenario that tested their ability to improvise. A sudden engine failure left several ships off course. Panic threatened to spread, but the protagonist remained calm, issuing clear instructions while allowing cadets to make decisions within their roles. Kieran's voice over the comm was steady and reassuring. Guiding those struggling without taking control from them, the simulation ended successfully. And the squadron cheered quietly, exhausted but proud. The protagonist allowed herself a small smile. This was exactly what she had hoped for: humans adapting, learning, and overcoming challenges together. Later, in the quiet of the training bay, she and Kieran reviewed the exercise logs. "You handled the improvisation well," he said. "You didn't just react. You adapted. That's what makes a leader effective." "You did too," she replied. "Your calm under pressure kept them from panicking." "I couldn't have done it without you." He met her eyes for a long moment. "We make a good team." Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of mutual respect, and perhaps more. She felt her pulse quicken, aware of a connection that went beyond professional collaboration. But she focused on the task at hand, reminding herself that her priority was the squadron, not personal feelings. By the end of the week, small but significant changes had taken place. The cadets moved with more coordination, made fewer mistakes, and showed growing confidence in their abilities. Trust had begun to take root, both among them and toward their leaders. The protagonist could see the potential for greatness, not because of superior technology or weaponry, but because of the human qualities that defined them: courage, adaptability, intelligence, and the willingness to trust one another. Standing in the observation deck as the station's artificial night settled, she looked out at the stars again, thinking of the squadron and the challenges that awaited them. Kieran joined her silently, the two of them standing side by side, watching the swirling nebula beyond the station windows. "You think they're ready?" he asked quietly. "Not yet," she said. "But they're getting there." and so are we. It's only the beginning. He nodded, his gaze distant for a moment, then returned to her. It's good, he said simply. To be part of something bigger than yourself. To guide, to protect, and to inspire. She smiled, feeling a quiet thrill. This was what she had wanted, not just to organize a squadron, but to help humans rise to their full potential. And perhaps in the process, she was beginning to discover something extraordinary for herself as well. The squadron had trained for weeks under the protagonist's careful guidance, yet nothing could fully prepare them for the first real mission. Intelligence reports had identified a border sector near a remote star system where an unknown alien force had been detected. Their movements were irregular, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. The mission was simple in description: patrol the area, identify threats, and respond to any hostile activity. In reality, it was a test of everything the squadron had learned: their coordination, judgment, and ability to remain calm under pressure. The hangar buzzed with quiet anticipation as cadets checked their ships. The sleek fighters gleamed under the bright lights, their hulls polished, engines humming. Kieran moved among the pilots, performing final inspections, his presence calm but commanding. The protagonist walked through the bay, observing the squadron with a critical eye, noting tension and hesitation in some of the cadets. "You've all trained for this," she said, addressing the group. "This mission is a chance to apply what you've learned. Trust your training, trust your teammates, and trust yourselves. Mistakes may happen. If they do adapt, that is what makes humans exceptional." Some cadets nodded nervously, others clenched their hands in determination. Kieran's sharp gaze swept over them, and even the most anxious cadets felt a measure of reassurance. He gave a slight nod toward the protagonist, silently conveying his confidence in her leadership. The squadron boarded their fighters. The hum of engines grew louder as each ship powered up, their systems coming online with a chorus of beeps and lights. The protagonist's own fighter sat ready at the center of the formation. She took a deep breath, feeling the familiar thrill of anticipation, the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders. Formation Alpha. "Report status," she commanded over the comm. "All systems ready," came Kieran's calm response. "All pilots online and ready for orders." She gave the signal, and the squadron lifted from the hangar with precision. As the ships entered open space, the nebula that had illuminated the station now stretched beneath them like a vast, colorful ocean. The beauty of it was mesmerizing, but there was no time for distraction. They were entering a zone where unknown dangers awaited. The mission began smoothly. The squadron maintained tight formations, moving in synchronized patterns to maximize coverage and minimize vulnerability. Sensors scanned the area for anomalies, while communication channels remained open for any coordination. Despite the nervousness of some cadets, their training showed through. Errors were minor, quickly corrected, and the squadron operated as a unit rather than a collection of individuals. Then the sensors picked up something unusual. A cluster of small ships, previously undetected, emerged from a hidden pocket of space. They moved fast, almost erratically, but their intent was clear. They were approaching the squadron in what appeared to be an aggressive formation. "Unknown contacts detected," the protagonist announced. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Maintain formation and follow protocol." The squadron tensed, engines flaring as they adjusted positions. Kieran's voice cut through the calm and precise. "Left vector 300 degrees. Cadet Larson, cover wing. Cadet May, follow my lead. Everyone else, maintain spacing. Trust each other." The first exchange of fire was sudden and chaotic. The alien ships moved unpredictably, testing the squadron's coordination. Bullets and energy pulses streaked past, some narrowly missing their targets, some connecting with minor damage. The cadets reacted quickly, adjusting positions, defending one another, and executing maneuvers drilled countless times in the simulators. Amid the chaos, a cadet hesitated, unsure of the next move. Kieran's voice guided him smoothly, providing direction without undermining his confidence. "Adjust left vector. Trust your partner. Now execute." The cadet followed. Managing to avoid a collision and firing back successfully, the protagonist focused on maintaining situational awareness. Her fingers danced over the controls, coordinating movements, issuing instructions, and adjusting strategy on the fly. Every decision mattered. One miscalculation could endanger the squadron. Her heart pounded, but her mind remained sharp. Humans had survived by adapting, by thinking creatively in the face of danger. This mission was no different. Hours passed like minutes. The squadron faced repeated attacks, each wave testing their skill and endurance. Slowly, they began to anticipate the alien maneuvers, using teamwork and strategy to outmaneuver the aggressors. Kieran's presence was instrumental. He acted as a guide and anchor, helping the cadets stay calm, think clearly, and act decisively. During a particularly intense moment, one cadet's fighter was struck, systems failing. The ship spiraled toward a nearby asteroid. Kieran acted instantly, flying alongside and guiding the cadet's emergency maneuvers. Throttle up. Adjust vector. You can do this. With his support, the cadet regained control, and the squadron adjusted formation to protect the vulnerable ship. The protagonist watched admiration for Kieran growing. His skill was extraordinary, but it was more than skill. It was his ability to inspire confidence and trust in others. She felt a pull toward him, a mixture of respect and something more complicated. She reminded herself to stay focused. Emotions had no place in command, yet she could not deny the growing awareness of his presence. The way he moved and acted with a quiet intensity that was magnetic. By the end of the mission, the squadron had successfully navigated the sector, identifying the alien threat and forcing it to retreat. There were minor damages, a few systems in need of repair, but no lives were lost. The cadets, exhausted but exhilarated, celebrated quietly over the comms. They had faced real danger and survived, not just because of technology, but because of human ingenuity, courage, and teamwork. Back at the station, the squadron landed safely in the hangar. Engines powered down, and the fighters came to rest. The protagonist stepped out of her ship, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. She moved among the cadets, checking for injuries and listening to reports. "You did well," she said, addressing the group. "You faced real danger and succeeded. But remember, this was just the first test. There will be more, and each mission will demand more from you. Trust each other, communicate, and never forget that your strength comes from working together." Kieran approached her, eyes reflecting a mixture of pride and quiet satisfaction. "They performed admirably," he said. "And so did you. Your guidance kept them focused and alive." She smiled faintly. "We did it together. None of us could have done it alone." He nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Yes, that is the essence of a true squadron trust, coordination and courage. You have all of those in abundance." Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, she and Kieran reviewed the mission logs. The stars outside seemed to shine brighter after the tension of battle, a reminder of the vastness of space and the fragility of life within it. "You handled everything perfectly," Kieran said softly. "Your decisions kept them alive. You saw patterns, anticipated problems, and guided them through danger. That's the mark of true leadership." "You were incredible too," she replied. "Your calm under pressure, your ability to teach while fighting it saved a cadet today. More than once." He looked at her, and for a moment, the intensity in his eyes softened. "We make a good team," he said. She felt her pulse quicken. It was more than just words about professional cooperation. There was an unspoken connection between them, a recognition of shared values, courage, and understanding. Yet she kept her composure, focusing on the squadron's growth. Personal feelings would have to wait. The mission always came first. In the days that followed, the squadron debriefed, repaired ships, and analyzed the encounter. Each cadet received individual feedback, highlighting successes and areas for improvement. Mistakes were addressed constructively, failures transformed into lessons. And confidence continued to grow. The protagonist watched with satisfaction as her recruits, Once scattered and uncertain, now moved with cohesion and purpose. They had faced real danger and had adapted, demonstrating the remarkable qualities that define humanity: intelligence, creativity, and resilience. One evening, after another long day, she found herself alone in the hangar with Kieran. The bay was quiet, lit only by the soft glow of emergency lights and the reflections off the polished floors. "You were impressive today," he said. "Not just in strategy, but in the way you inspire people. They trust you, and that trust saved lives." She looked at him, a faint smile forming. "We trust each other too," she said quietly, aware of the subtle tension that had grown between them. He nodded, and for a long moment neither spoke. The hum of the station surrounded them, but it felt distant compared to the shared understanding between them. There was mutual respect, admiration, a quiet acknowledgement that something deeper was beginning to grow. As she left the hangar, she looked back at the squadron. They were still learning, still growing, but they had faced their first real test stand. They had survived. Humans, she thought, were extraordinary not because of their technology or ships, but because of their ability to adapt, to trust, and to rise together against challenges. And in that realization, she found both pride and hope. Kieran's voice came over to come quietly. "Good work today, Commander. Rest well. Tomorrow, we continue." She smiled softly. "Good work, Lieutenant." The squadron returned from their first mission with a sense of pride, but the protagonists knew better than to let that pride dull their vigilance. The station was a hive of activity as cadets prepared for routine maintenance and debriefings. But tension lingered beneath the surface. She had observed subtle signs of discontent among some cadets' frustration at mistakes, whispers of jealousy, and occasional insubordination. A squadron was only as strong as its weakest link, and she understood that one careless act could jeopardize the safety of everyone. Kieran stood beside her on the observation deck, arms folded as he watched the cadets moving through the hangar. "Something's not right," he said quietly. "I've seen it before. Small cracks can grow fast if not addressed." She nodded, her mind already analyzing possibilities. "Agreed. I've noticed hesitation from a few of the cadets. Not fear exactly, but distraction. I intend to address it before it becomes a problem." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Lieutenant Merrick, a sharp-eyed officer responsible for station security. "Commander," he said, bowing slightly, "there's been a minor security alert. One of the training modules was tampered with. Nothing major, but it could have caused serious issues during a simulation." The protagonist's pulse quickened. Sabotage Van Miner was a serious concern. She immediately summoned the squadron for a review. "Attention all," she said firmly, her voice carrying authority. "There has been interference with one of the simulation modules. Safety protocols prevented damage, but this is a serious matter. Trust and vigilance are essential. I will be investigating this thoroughly, and I expect full cooperation from everyone." The cadets exchanged uneasy glances. Some shifted uncomfortably, others looked nervous. The sense of unity they had been building was now being tested in a way no simulation could prepare them for. Kieran stood close to her, his presence steady. "We'll find the source," he said. "Humans are good at observing patterns. Someone made a mistake or a choice. Either way, it will be discovered." She appreciated his calm. Even amid uncertainty, he exuded confidence, which helped to steady the squadron. Together, they began reviewing logs, cross-checking access codes, and analyzing who had been near the affected module. Slowly, they began piecing together a timeline. It became clear that the sabotage was deliberate. One cadet had overridden protocols in a careless attempt to gain recognition during simulations. The protagonist confronted the individual privately, maintaining a firm but fair tone. "Your actions could have endangered the squadron," she said. "Do you understand the consequences?" The cadet, a young pilot named Rallin, nodded, shame in his eyes. I just wanted to prove I could handle more responsibility. I didn't mean to cause harm." She took a deep breath. "Intentions are not enough. Leadership requires responsibility and awareness of consequences. You will assist in repairing the systems and work with Kieran to ensure this never happens again." You have a chance to regain trust, but it will not be easy. Kieran watched silently, approving of the measured response. The situation could have escalated into fear or resentment, but the protagonist handled it with fairness and clarity. Trust, he knew, was built as much through accountability as through encouragement. Later that evening, she and Kieran remained in the quiet hangar, reviewing performance data and preparing for the next series of drills. The soft hum of inactive engines and the glow of emergency lights made the space feel serene after the day's tension. "You handled the situation well," Kieran said quietly. "You held the squadron accountable without breaking morale. That is true leadership." "Thank you," she replied. "It's difficult, but essential. A squadron cannot function if members fear punishment or favor. They need to trust each other and the leaders guiding them." "Right. I've noticed something else too," he said carefully. "You've begun to influence more than their skills. You're shaping their confidence, their willingness to rely on each other. That is remarkable." She felt a warmth at his words, though she kept her focus. "We're shaping them together," she said, meeting his eyes briefly. There was a subtle tension, a connection that grew with each shared challenge. But she reminded herself that professionalism must come first. Yet even as she thought this, she felt a thrill at the unspoken understanding between them. The next week, the squadron was assigned a series of complex simulations to test their cohesion after the incident. They had to navigate dense asteroid fields, evade simulated enemy fire, and coordinate multi-ship maneuvers. Every cadet had a role, and any mistake could result in simulated disaster. The exercises began smoothly, but midway, a surprise scenario was introduced. One ship was damaged and its pilot incapacitated. Panic flared among the cadets, but the protagonist remained calm, issuing precise instructions. "Adjust formation. Cover the damaged ship. Trust your partner." Kieran's voice cut through the tension. "Stay focused. You've trained for this. Execute the maneuvers. Adapt." The cadets hesitated for a moment, then began moving with growing confidence. The energetic pilots adjusted their flight paths to shield the vulnerable ship, while the analytical pilots calculated the safest routes. Each member relied on another, making split-second decisions that reflected both skill and trust. At one point, the protagonist noticed Raylon struggling to maintain formation. Without hesitation, she guided him through the correction, her voice steady and firm. Kieran joined in over the come, offering gentle reinforcement. Together, they helped the cadet regain control, ensuring the squadron stayed cohesive. The exercise ended successfully, and a quiet cheer went through the squadron. They had faced an unexpected challenge, adapted, and prevailed. The incident of sabotage, though troubling, had taught a valuable lesson about accountability, trust, and resilience. Afterward, the cadets were dismissed, leaving the hangar mostly empty. The protagonist remained with Kieran, reviewing data and reflecting on the week's events. "You've changed them," he said softly. "They've grown in ways that go beyond skill. They've learned to trust each other and to respond under pressure. You've made them better humans." "I hope so," she said, her gaze drifting over the empty hangar. "That's always the goal, not just to train them, but to help them realize what they're capable of. Humans are extraordinary when they work together and rise to challenges." Kieran's eyes met hers, a mixture of admiration and something deeper in his gaze. "You see the potential in them? And maybe in others too," he said quietly. She felt her pulse quicken, aware of the tension between them. It was subtle, respectful, and unspoken, yet undeniable. She looked away, focusing on the data. "We have a lot to prepare for," she said, reminding herself that leadership came first. Yet she could not ignore the quiet thrill of connection that had been growing between them. Over the following days, the squadron continued to train, facing increasingly complex simulations and real-time scenarios. Each exercise emphasized trust, quick thinking, and teamwork. Mistakes were corrected constructively, successes were celebrated, and the cadets' confidence grew steadily. During one late-night training session, the protagonist and Kieran worked together to demonstrate a particularly difficult maneuver. They piloted their ships in precise coordination, moving through a dense asteroid field as the cadets observed. The demonstration highlighted not only their technical skill, but also the seamless communication and trust required to execute such maneuvers. "Watch closely," she said, over the come to the cadets. "Notice how we anticipate each other's moves, how we adapt to unexpected changes. That is what teamwork looks like. It is more than following orders. It is understanding your partner and trusting them completely." Kieran's voice followed smoothly. "Remember, human intuition and adaptability are powerful tools. Machines are precise, but humans are capable of creativity, improvisation, and courage. That is what makes us extraordinary." The cadets watched intently, inspired by the display. Some whispered to one another about the precision and coordination. Others took mental notes, and a few even felt a spark of admiration for the bond between the two leaders. After the demonstration, the protagonist and Kieran returned to the hangar floor. Their proximity was close but professional, yet there was an unspoken connection. A recognition that they relied on each other not just for skill, but for support and understanding. "You inspire them," Kieran said softly. "Not just with your skill, but with your belief in their potential." "You inspire me too," she replied, surprising herself with the honesty in her voice. She looked at him for a brief moment, feeling the quiet tension and warmth between them. "We make a good team," Kieran nodded, eyes lingering on hers. "Yes, a very good team." As the week drew to a close, the squadron had grown stronger, more confident, and more united. They had faced internal challenges, adapted to unexpected scenarios, and begun to trust one another in ways that went beyond the simulations. Humanity's strength, she realized, was not just in technology or training, but in the ability to adapt, to learn, and to support each other. Standing on the observation deck that night, looking out at the distant stars, the protagonist felt a mixture of pride, hope, and a growing awareness of the connection she shared with Kieran. The squadron was ready for more, and so was she. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, guided by trust, courage. The squadron was ready. Weeks of training, drills, and small victories had forged them into a cohesive unit capable of handling challenges, far greater than any one of them could face alone. The station was tense that morning, the calm before a storm. Intelligence reports indicated a major alien incursion near a distant star system. Unlike previous simulations, this was real. The unknown force had attacked a supply convoy, and now the responsibility to intercept and neutralize it fell to the squadron. The protagonist stood on the observation deck, looking at her team. They were quiet, focused, and alert. Their eyes betrayed nerves, but there was also determination. She felt the familiar weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders. Every decision she made would matter not just for the mission, but for the lives of every cadet under her command. Kieran approached, his steps silent, but his presence grounding. "They're ready," he said quietly. "You've made them ready, and so have you." She nodded, grateful for his calm assurance. "We'll face this together," she said, "and we'll come back together." They moved to the hangar where their fighters gleamed under the station lights. The engines hummed in anticipation, a chorus of mechanical life eager to carry them into the unknown. The cadets checked their systems one last time, confirming weapons, shields, and navigation. Every detail mattered, and she walked among them, offering final words of encouragement. "Remember your training," she said firmly. "Trust your team, communicate, adapt. Humans survive because we can think, adjust, and work together. Do not underestimate the unknown, but do not fear it either. We will rise to this challenge as one squadron." Kieran stepped beside her, adding his own words of calm authority. "I've seen your progress. You are ready for this. Trust yourselves. Trust each other. You are extraordinary, and today you will prove it." The squadron boarded their ships. The hum of engines rose, filling the hangar with energy. They lifted off in formation, leaving the station behind as they entered the vast blackness of space. Stars stretched endlessly around them, distant suns shimmering like beacons in the void. The first contact came swiftly. A group of alien ships emerged from a nearby nebula, moving unpredictably, firing bursts of energy that lit up the darkness. The squadron tensed, but the training kicked in. Formations adjusted, cadets maneuvered in synchronized patterns, and the protagonist coordinated with calm precision, evasive maneuvers. "Protect the vulnerable units," she commanded. "Maintain formation, adjust speed, anticipate their moves." Kieran's voice was steady and encouraging. "Trust your instincts. Work as a team. We've trained for this." The alien ships were relentless, testing their coordination and reaction times. Cadets who had once struggled to trust one another now moved seamlessly together, covering one another, anticipating moves, and responding to threats. The protagonist's heart swelled with pride as she saw the human spirit in action, adaptable, brave, and unyielding. One alien ship broke through their formation, targeting a cadet whose shields were faltering. The protagonist acted instantly, adjusting her flight path to intercept and protect the vulnerable ship. Kieran followed closely, covering another wing. Together, they moved as a single entity, guiding the squadron through the chaos. "Cadet Lin, adjust vector 20 degrees. Cadet Rallin, cover your wing. Everyone else, maintain fire and focus on coordination." She ordered, her voice calm despite the danger. The battle raged. Energy blasts streaking across the void, explosions illuminating the dark space like fleeting fireworks. The cadets responded with precision, defending one another and adapting to the alien tactics. Mistakes were corrected quickly. Successes were amplified by teamwork. During a critical moment, one of the cadets was nearly hit by a debris field caused by a damaged alien ship. Kieran reacted instantly, guiding the pilot to safety with calm, clear instructions. The cadet maneuvered successfully, adrenaline replaced by relief. The protagonist observed, noting how trust and training had turned fear into effective action. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The alien force began to falter, their movements becoming less coordinated as the squadron adapted and countered with ingenuity. The cadets, once uncertain, now acted with confidence, their teamwork turning the tide of battle. Finally, the lead alien ship attempted a desperate maneuver, aiming to divide the squadron. The protagonist anticipated it, issuing precise commands to counter the attack. Kieran mirrored her actions, moving with flawless synchronization. Together, they guided the squadron, turning the alien strategy against them. The remaining alien ships, seeing their advantage vanish, retreated into the nebula. The squadron breathed a collective sigh of relief. They had survived their first real battle, and more than that, they had triumphed through strategy, trust, and courage. The protagonist felt a surge of pride, not just in the cadets, but in humanity itself. Humans could adapt, overcome, and rise above challenges, even in the face of the unknown. Back at the station, the squadron landed safely. The hangar was filled with quiet celebration and relieved smiles. The protagonist moved among her team, offering praise and encouragement. "You did it," she said, addressing the squadron. "You faced real danger and proved that human ingenuity, teamwork, and courage are unmatched. Remember this feeling, this triumph. It is the result of trust, discipline, and belief in one another." Kieran approached, his eyes reflecting pride and something warmer. "They performed remarkably," he said. "And so did you. Together, you led them to victory." She smiled faintly, feeling the connection between them deepen. "We led them together," she said, in the days that followed. The squadron was debriefed, repairs were made, and lessons were learned. The cadets had grown immeasurably, their confidence and trust in one another now unshakable. They had faced real danger and emerged stronger, proving that human potential was limitless when courage, skill, and teamwork converged. One evening, after all, debriefings and maintenance were complete. The protagonist and Kieran remained alone in the quiet hangar. The soft glow of lights reflected off the polished floors, and the hum of dormant engines filled the silence. "You were incredible today," he said softly. "Not just in combat, but in leadership. You guided them, inspired them, and kept them alive. I've never seen such clarity under pressure." "You were incredible too," she replied. Your skill, your calm, your ability to support and teach it saved lives more than once. I don't know what I would have done without you. He stepped closer, and for a moment, the air between them seemed charged with unspoken understanding. We make a good team, he said quietly, his eyes meeting hers. She felt her pulse quicken, warmth spreading through her chest. Yes, she whispered, the best team. The silence stretched, comfortable and meaningful, as they stood together. The weight of the mission and the intensity of the past weeks melting into a shared understanding. Their bond had grown not just from respect and admiration, but from shared challenges, trust, and the quiet recognition that they could rely on each other in every circumstance. Finally, Kieran spoke, his voice gentle. I think we've proven more than just our skills. We've shown what humans are capable of: courage, adaptability, and strength. And maybe what we're capable of together. She smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and anticipation. Yes, together. From that moment, the tension between them eased into something steady and reassuring. They had faced danger, guided others, and succeeded through trust, intelligence, and courage. The human spirit, she realized, was extraordinary not just in battle, but in the connections it could create, the trust it could inspire, and the love that could grow in even the most challenging circumstances. The squadron continued to train and serve, their reputation now known throughout the sector. Cadets who had once doubted themselves now acted with confidence. They had witnessed the power of human ingenuity and courage, guided by leaders who inspired not just skill, but belief in each other. Standing together on the observation deck one night, looking out at the endless stars, the protagonist and Kieran felt a quiet satisfaction. The squadron was ready for whatever came next. Humanity had once again shown that it could adapt, overcome, and rise. And in that moment, they also acknowledged the personal bond that had grown between the Ma bond built on trust, respect, and shared experience. The stars twinkled beyond the station windows, silent witnesses to the courage, resilience, and heart of the human spirit. And somewhere in that vast expanse, the protagonist felt a sense of hope and possibility, not just for her squadron, not just for humanity, but for herself and Kieran, knowing that together they could face any challenge in space or beyond.